Welcome to the Aspire to Be podcast. I'm your host, Julie Kropgorelic. Today's guest, Erin Dupree, dedicated a 2-decade career in communications, mastering the art of conversation and telling unique stories for the organizations that she worked for. And now, as the owner of Bobbles and Lace Atlanta, Erin is turning what felt like a moonshot into a reality. I've had the good fortune of knowing Erin for over a decade and really look forward to today's conversation. Erin, welcome to Aspire to Be.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Well, I know on our first episode with Jeff, who is your business partner, we hinted at being able to get you to come on this podcast. So I'm happy that you finally agreed to come.
I don't know that I agreed. I think you just sent me the confirmation and
we're pretty good at that.
Yeah, here I am.
Well, thank you for coming. I mean, certainly we've heard some of the story from Jeff, but as someone who's spent nearly 20 years working in organizations, in communications and PR, what led you to aspire to become a business owner?
So I've always loved fashion. It was always a dream to own a boutique, be in the fashion industry in some, aspect. I never honestly knew where to start or that it was even a possibility. The idea of starting my own business, I just didn't even know where to begin. And I had toyed with, maybe doing something online and just looked very casually into that. Obviously never did anything with that. And so Jeff is from Boston. And so we go up there a lot to see family or to vacation. And there's a store based in the New England area, Bobbles and Lace, and they have 8 corporate stores. And so, I went in, I think the very first one I went in was in Newport, Rhode Island. And I went in and I just really loved the experience and the aesthetic and, the clothing and the price point. And so I, began shopping there when we would be in the area. I would shop online. And I forged a relationship with a woman who works on the corporate side there. She's actually the, lead contact for franchisees, Michaela.
Sure.
And, just in conversation, I mentioned how much I love the brand. And so she told me that they had begun a franchise model. And so I guess that was about October of 2022 that we took our first meeting. And then, flash forward, here we are. And it's great because there's a lot of autonomy. I get to do all of my own buying and I got to, pretty much decorate the store how I wanted. But there's a framework there, which was important for me because I would have no idea where to begin in terms of, relationships with buyers and that sort of thing.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, did your career coming into this prepare you for this? In some ways, maybe not in others?
Not really. I mean, definitely on, maybe the communication front, the relationship front. But, the last kind of corporate job I had before going into the boutique space was I worked for International Society of Arboriculture. I was there for just shy of 5 years. And so it was very male dominated, working with men in the, landscape world, that sort of thing. So definitely
very different.
Totally different from a boutique, right?
Sure.
But, so not really, but I did learn, coming up through the association world, relationships and communication and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But definitely very different. Definitely never worked harder or more, than I do now owning a business.
Well, and we hear that because a lot of times entrepreneurs or the thought of an entrepreneur or business owner is, oh, I'll have all of this great flexibility and I can do all of these great things. I've found that I have less flexibility than maybe I did before, but at the same time, it doesn't feel terrible because it's your business at the end of the day. But were there things that surprised you about the process, about like whether it was like with yourself, were you surprised at what you did know or,
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I thought, I'm going to have all this free time to go on all of these girls' trips. And Jeff and I are going to travel the world. And, we haven't quite made it there.
Sure.
I'm hoping to soon.
Right.
But just, getting our feet wet and getting into the community. And it's just been about 7 or 8 months. And, staffing shortages and staffing issues here and there. I haven't had the opportunity for a lot of free time like I thought. But there's definitely pros and cons because I'm also working for myself.
Yes.
And the business right now is paying the bills in terms of, it's my salary essentially, which is
Correct.
amazing.
Yeah.
Also, just not having to answer to anyone unless it's Jeff.
Right.
I'm kidding.
We'll
Jeff is
talk about that
amazing.
too.
Yeah, yeah. But I've definitely had some terrible managers in the past, some real micromanagers. And so it's amazing. Sometimes I have to pinch myself if I'm sitting in the store on a Wednesday, in a totally outlandish outfit that, I get to wear this
To
on a
work.
weekday. I'm in my business. I'm not answering to anyone. I get to dress women and make them feel confident and beautiful. And so there's definitely pros and cons, but it's a
100%.
lot of work.
Yeah.
Definitely, I was an eternal optimist. I never had the thought of a $0 day.
Right.
Definitely had some $0
Until you have your
days.
first $0 day.
Yeah, and you're like, oh wow, this is a thing. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I definitely learned a lot along the way for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Well, and it's hard, right? Because coming into it, like you said, even though you invested in a franchise of, Bobbles and Lace, there was a framework there.
Yeah.
But there still isn't like a point by point, here's how you run a successful business.
Right.
A lot of it you'll learn on the job,
Yeah.
or even as you mentioned, I know with staffing being a big thing. I mean, I know retail's been hit pretty hard from a staffing perspective.
Yeah.
Have you seen that improve at all over the last year?
It's gotten a little better. I started out really fortunate. We had a great kind of number 2 assistant store director. She came to us because she was in the film industry and they were on strike. And so we had her, and we always knew we would lose her eventually.
Sure.
And we lost her sooner than we, anticipated. And then it actually worked out for the best because Q1 in retail is typically not great, right?
Yeah.
And so that's right about the time she left. And it would have been really difficult, honestly, with, the change in revenue and then just with payroll and
The
such.
carrying cost.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of worked out. And so I held off intentionally for a few months on hiring that position. And there was even a stretch of time where it was literally just me. I mean, I think I worked something like 20 days in a row because we're open 7 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so it has gotten better. I've hired recently. I'm really excited about the team that I'm building. I actually yesterday extended an offer to a new assistant store director.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. But I've definitely witnessed that for sure.
Yeah, it's hard, but I know it's been even harder to find a lot of qualified folks across industry. So I'm glad to hear that things are improving on that front. And we brought up Jeff, and I asked Jeff the same question, is that you and Jeff have been together for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
And now you're not just partners in life, but you're partners in business.
Yeah.
What has that transition been like?
So, I mean, we definitely can be a little short with each other if it's, a stressful day or a stressful week with the store. He still has his corporate job, and then he does a lot for the store as well. So, he basically has 2 full-time jobs essentially.
Yeah.
He thankfully handles all of the kind of boring things that I have no interest in,
Which is
the
great.
accounting, payroll, all of that.
Yeah.
But I also try to make it a point to, have a dinner where I don't talk about the store or talk about staffing issues or the client experience
hard,
that
right?
day. And it's hard. And I also try to be better about putting my phone away because, right now, if I'm on social media, it's for the store. I'm not on there, looking at what my friends have posted on Instagram, that sort of thing. I'm always on looking for, ideas of things to post on the store social, but I'm trying to be, or responding to DMs at all hours, somebody asking about a pair of shoes. So I'm trying to be more mindful of that, but we definitely can kind of pick at each other if we're stressed out. I mean, it's difficult to work with each other for sure.
It is.
But I think we're getting into a good groove.
Well, I grew up in a family business, so I know how difficult it can be to kind of manage. Like when the people closest to you, you're also running a business, it can be very difficult. But I do think it's also part of the learning process too, right? It's that you guys both had your own careers, and now you're merging sort of an investment together, right? And so it can be difficult to learn how to communicate properly or in the best way. But I do think, knowing Jeff and knowing you, I think that you're the perfect complement in terms of what you guys both bring to the business. And I think it's very obvious in what you guys have built. So I love that.
Well, thank you.
What advice can you impart on others who maybe are still working for a company but looking to start their own business? What are some of the things that you would tell them?
I would say if you're really passionate about it, go for it, absolutely. But know, not necessarily the risks, but I'm an eternal optimist. And so, again, I never thought about the prospect of a $0 day. And so just know things like that going into it. Know that you're not going to have this fun, fancy free lifestyle where you're off gallivanting. I mean, I'm in the store.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I didn't work a Saturday,
Right.
which I always said,
You would never work a Saturday.
and I wouldn't do it. I only will do it for my business, especially in the fall when it comes to college football.
Of course.
So just know that going in, that you will never work harder. You will never work more hours. You will lose your social life for a bit, but it's worth it. A lot of things outweigh all of that. Just working for yourself, having something that belongs to you, having your own business is amazing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I always kind of equate it to, the highs are super high, so the rewards are amazing, but the lows are pretty dark.
Yeah, especially the firsts of everything, right?
Yes.
We've had our first Q1 now,
Yes.
and so now we can prepare for next year. Yep.
No, I remember, well, and we've been around for 15 years at Junction, and I do remember in those early years where things were growing, and then I had like a month where like it wasn't as stellar, or the revenue, new contracts weren't as high. And I remember those moments going like, oh my gosh, it's never going to come. And then like the next month it comes.
Yeah.
So I don't panic necessarily about those things anymore, but I do still think that there's a lot of firsts that you get when you start, and then not that they lessen, but you get used to, I think, the shock of them.
Yeah, and you can prepare for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, what have you learned about yourself in this process?
That's a good question. I think definitely I'm stronger than I thought I was, just with, there's certain things you just have to do it. Like I spoke earlier about, having a staffing shortage, and you just don't have a choice. I mean, I've gone to the store sick so many times. I mean, I went to the store with RSV and a ruptured eardrum. Literally could not hear for shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can curse.
Yes, you can. Our listeners are fine with that.
I mean, I literally could not hear out of my left ear, but I was in the store, working, and just because when it's just you, that's all you have to depend on. So, yeah. No,
I love that you found the strength, right? You find that you're a little bit more resilient than maybe you thought you were. But again, I think that that's what being a business owner really is all about, is that even if you're a year in or 15 years in, you're tested continuously with different challenges. But the navigating the challenges can sometimes be fun too.
Yeah.
But, well, how can we find Bobbles and Lace? How can we find you?
Yeah, so we are in East Cobb, just about 10 minutes from where we're sitting right now. We have a big online presence. We have our Instagram page, which is Bobbles and Lace Atlanta, all together. You can shop virtually. We ship. If you see something you like, DM me. I will respond at all hours of the day.
We know you'll be getting the message.
Yes, exactly. Come to the store. Come visit. If you come in and mention the podcast, I'd be happy to give you a little friends and family discount.
Well, fantastic. So for our listeners that are watching this podcast, whether it be today or a few days from now, please do visit Bobbles and Lace Atlanta, and hopefully you're lucky enough to meet Erin. I know she definitely brings a very positive energy to the store, and if you haven't shopped there, it's definitely worth going. I know I enjoy going, and I'm so excited for the path that you and Jeff are on. What's next?
So we would love to expand in the Atlanta market, would love to open multiple stores in the Atlanta area. That was always, the dream. And so we're just, working to continue to build up the current location, and we love the community, and I've loved getting to know all of the women in this community, and then I would love to just, again, expand into the Atlanta area with other locations.
Well, fantastic. Well, we, of course, look forward to continuing to follow your journey, and certainly thank our listeners for joining us today for this episode of the Aspire to Be podcast with Erin Dupree from Bobbles and Lace Atlanta. And you can find them on Instagram at Bobbles and Lace Atlanta.
Yep.
All one word. Don't forget to follow us at www.aspiretobe.co. As always, I will leave you with these parting words. Aspire to be, dare to become. You might just surprise yourself. Thanks for listening to this episode, and we look forward to seeing you on the next.